how do people collaborate and how do they want to collaborate in the future? You cannot only do the new work stuff for yourself, but you also need to synchronize that in the team in order to make it work.
Welcome to Get Inspired, your podcast to feel connected, empowered and inspired by real-world role models and their stories of managing parenthood with successful careers. Christoph Magnussen is a CEO, author, speaker, YouTuber, podcaster and father, and he works with companies across the world, helping them to use new work tools to improve communication and collaboration at work and improve their employees' lives in the process. In today's podcast, he shares some tips and tricks for how we can all apply that to our own lives with our host, Ricarda Engelmeier. I'll hand over to her now for more.
Let's get started. Christoph, I'm really excited that you're with us. Welcome to MyCollective.
Thank you.
It's good to have you. I want to give a short introduction, very short, and maybe you can also add a couple of things. But Christopher is the CEO of Blackboard, a consulting company mainly focusing on tech and cloud solutions. And you're also the author of On the Way to New Work. And that's not only the title of your book, that's also the title of your podcast and YouTube channel. And this is also, surprise, surprise, the topic that we want to talk about, new work. So welcome, and I'm very excited to have you with us here in this podcast session.
Thank you, Ricarda. Thank you.
New work is not that new anymore, but maybe before we dive into new work and what exactly is the new part of it that you are doing, I would like to know why you're in that field. So maybe a bit more about, maybe we can hear a bit more about you and why new work is your mission. You're spreading the mission, you're introducing the mission, you're an entrepreneur in that field. Why is that your mission?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I give you a brief setup and background, and maybe that helps a little bit. So I'm Christoph, 41 years old, and to give a bit of background to my setup, 2 kids, divorced in a patchwork setup, kid number 3 on the way. Half the time I'm with the kids, the other half the time I'm working. So I'm quite aware of everything around that logistics. I will tell you a little bit about that later. I run a company of 40 people. So there is work to do. And how did I stumble into that field of new work? And it's definitely not new. It's from the 80s originally, the term. And the definition, or by definition, new work is a work that makes us stronger instead of weaker. Meaning, if you leave on Friday, you're not TGIF, but you're more like, I'm looking forward to Monday. You're not saying, oh, it's Friday and I'm so exhausted, I'm looking forward to Monday. Which is a tough one, since we all know when you're with kids at home, because then when you've been jumped on Saturday or have a sick child on Sunday, or like me yesterday, one doesn't want to go in the kita and so on, it's a tough one. And I'm originally from the field of improving collaboration in companies. So the focus of my company is how do people collaborate and how do they want to collaborate in the future? So we run in the background many thousands accounts with Google, with Zoom, with Teams, Microsoft, and so on a technical side, but also help people to improve the meetings and all that stuff. So most likely stuff you know from your day-to-day job. But there is something underneath it. And this is the question of like, why is it sometimes so difficult to make people work together in a better way? And you cannot only do the new work stuff for yourself and say, I want to improve myself, I want to find better purpose for my life, what I'm doing this for, and so on. But you also need to synchronize that in the team in order to make it work, right? Because if every one of you, like right now, is on the road and say, I want to work wherever I am, parental leave is pretty clear. But we also have not only parents of childs in the company, but like dog parents, cat parents, people who like care for their parents at home, and so on. And this topic of Vereinbarkeit brings this question together. How do you do that? And when people realize it's a nice theoretical concept that every one of us is very flexible, but how do you actually make it work in a day-to-day life? And this is what I'm doing every single day. And people started to call that new work, although the original new work has the question of like Do we need to find a different work? Do we need to organize it different? But when I met the inventor of the term new work, Frithjof Bergmann, I met him twice. I actually made the last interview before he died with him. We agreed on one very simple thing. That's the topic of, we have technology that can help us to organize work in a different way. And if you then have a close look on how people use technology, what they do with it, and I'm talking also about the space that you work in and all that stuff, this can really help us. But at the moment, many people are stressed out about it. So this is why I'm so passionate about that topic. Very pragmatic approach, speaking here as a father, but on the other hand, also as an entrepreneur. And as I call it at home, I'm half-time mother, half-time father, because people tend to put us with their opinion into the drawer and say, this is a typical mother job, this is a typical father job, although you should mix it around. So I say to my kids, I'm half-time both. And that helps them in order to like make it a bit more integrative. Quick example from my son, he's 5, turning 6. And when we were on the bike yesterday, and I said, there was an accident that we saw on the road, and I said, like, yeah, there was a girl driving, a woman driving. And he said, how do you know that? I said, like, I could see it through the window, the long hair. And then he said, yeah, but just because of the long hair, I mean, he's 5, right? I said, yeah, you're absolutely right.
You're 5-year-old.
let's agree on, it's a human being with long hair. You're absolutely right.
Okay. It's not a usual 5-year-old that
no.
But you are obviously very active in your educational part. Okay, so Christopher, you've put a lot of things out there, and I would like to break it down now. So it's new work plus digitalization. You called it flexibility. You said flexibility or new work at home and at work. Can we go step by step?
Sure.
So new work. First, as you said, it's from the 80s. It changed. It was a kind of I have a feeling that it was a ramp up. It started as an idea, it actually changed the entire environment. And now you have a sort of ramp up of COVID, but then you had the COVID times, which kind of gave it a bit of an extra twist in terms of what it does to work life. And then now it's also powered by the lack of skilled labor. So you have a situation where you can add the sort of the elements of new work and the COVID facilitation or change of the work life powered by lack of skilled labor, all together in a kind of situation where you actually have a new situation. It might be the original new work, but it does something to how work life, and I'm not going to say work sort of work-life balance, but just the work life is different.
Yeah.
And here is where you added the sort of digital element into it. You named a couple of the tools. I mean, we kind of all work with Google, Slack, and whatever. So what exactly does that for parents?
Very good question. It does a lot. So take two things. Number one, the source of new work comes from a crisis. This is very important because back then when the idea came up, they had the automotive crisis in the 80s, especially in Michigan. So a lot of people had to leave their jobs. And in the US, you don't have this thing called Kurzarbeit and all the social security that we have here. That's the first thing. So it comes from a crisis, which is very important when it comes to the attitude, how you approach crisis. Crisis can be something small, something big, doesn't really matter. Can also be a challenge at home because, I mean, as parents, we all know we have two sides in our heart. The ones that we really love the job, and then there are certain days when it just doesn't run like it's said in the book or in this beautiful movie or in this Instagram feed that we follow, right? So this is very important because that gives the underlying feeling that we have here a concept that is a lot based on attitude and how you approach stuff, number one. Number two, when you say COVID times and what changed, when I mean organize work in a different way, it doesn't necessarily mean the digital tools. They are part of it. But the way of how we approach work. We just, and this is the goal of new work, we just love working so much that even if we have all the tools to let it go, we really would have a hard time. I mean, most of us are on a parental leave. That's how we call it. So meaning we are coming back. Why do we do that? We need the money, number one, of course, but then also we really like what we're doing. And we haven't been looking enough in the last years to make certain things that are unnecessary more productive, more efficient, and so on. And I give you a very concrete example for parents. When I'm with the kids full week, and I do this for the last almost 5 years now on a Wechselmodell, like week on week basis. And this was to me in the divorce phase a non-negotiable. I told my ex-wife, we can negotiate everything, every single penny, except for one thing, which is outside of the negotiation. It's I'm 100% father, you 100% mother, and there is no evidence that the mother has a different advantage than the father. What I'm always saying is mothers have 9 months ahead. But after that, you have to show up every day. This is what makes you a father. This means the bonus father of the kids, same stuff. He has to show up. But that's a different story. So very concrete example. In this week, when I have the kids, I pick them up between 2 and 3. As a managing director of 40 people, the social expectation would be I'm around until 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, always on. Phone ringing, in a video conference, because it's so easy to set it up. I mean, like many of you are now walking. Silvia, for example, is on a walk. Some are off. So it means that it actually doesn't work for our schedule to have a conference, a synchronous way of communication. Why don't we use a more asynchronous approach that we have in our pockets? We would be able to record a video. We would be able to leave a picture. We could make a PowerPoint presentation on the phone and share it. We can leave a voice message. And this is simply because we are not used to this work mode. We have to learn that. We have to train it like we had to learn to switch from an old Nokia phone to an iPhone. Most of you will remember when they had the smartphone for the first time. And this is the important thing. And this is changing within the last years in a very fast speed. And for 10,000s of years, we learned how a bonfire works. And when we sit around the fire, we learned that through our ancestors, we have that intuitively. So when we sit together on a table, we intuitively know what to do. And we expect that from a couple of years digital tools, we intuitively know how to use them. And this is my point. So parents can gain a lot of flexibility when we have more asynchronous ways of communication, as one example, in companies, meaning we have a very media-rich format. We will have it in the newspaper on Friday, where we show some of that, where you like have a video with subtitles, a artificial intelligence summary, and so on, so that you can use that in the afternoon or evening or whenever you approach it, but you don't have hours of video conferencing in the afternoon, which even doesn't work for me. And I'm the boss. I could say I don't want that, but it even doesn't work for me.
Okay, so you're saying that new work has given new opportunities for parents, but then again, there are a lot of people, including us, who say parents are the kind of forefront of new work. So it's both ways, right? Because in a way, if you're a parent and you want to see your kids when they're still awake, you will be out of the office at some point of time where it might have been previously expected for people to be there. So this asynchronous sort of way is sort of a necessity that you, just because you want to see your kids awake, basically have to push for. So in a way, it sort of, you're the driver of that, but then also the first potential user. Now you're saying you have to learn this. Is there, can we, if you have to learn these new skills,
yeah,
can you learn them at home already while you're in parental leave? So is it possible to practice new work plus digitalization or flexibility plus digitalization at home?
Mm-hmm. Okay, you definitely can learn stuff at home, and you have to be quite aware of what is happening. I mean, one of my managing directors and my like very long-term fellow in the company, Antonia, was for 1 year in parental leave now, and now coming back as an MD. And it's not very often that an MD is gone for a year, full year. She has to like get back up to speed. I mean, in this last year, so much is happening in our field. So we expect from our people always a certain, and we call that new is good framework, so that you have the attitude to approach new stuff with an open mind, to like give it a shortcut and explanation. But, and this is the big advantage as parents, since we made this experience of how difficult it is to have this mental load. I mean, starting at 5 o'clock this morning, I had between my girlfriend, pregnant in the last month, left for a job meeting. I prepared breakfast. I had to get the school stuff ready. I have at the same time now 5 WhatsApp groups for birthday coordination. Then the stuff in the company, recession going on, then driving both of them with their bikes through a city to, I mean, the mental load up until 9 o'clock in the morning is so high already that you have a totally different approach of a morning than other people. So this brings you in a certain position that you are more aware to different concepts in life. I mean, this is already within a partnership a thing. We can discuss this later. How many fathers do a 50-50 job day by day, a true 50-50 job? This will really help to lower the divorce rate, I would say. And I'm divorced, so I know what I'm talking about. So the sooner fathers and mothers know vice versa how the job works, and not where can I support you is the wrong question. It's half time you're flat. So
yeah, that's interesting, because there are actually statistics that show that. I mean, you're sharing your own story.
Yeah,
but there
we
yeah.
come to it. But the question is, what can you do then? And here comes the challenge. You can train that at home.
Okay.
So you can train these skills at home, but how do you synchronize them within the company? This is the challenge, and this is what we do and work on every day. I mean, we have clients, I cannot even tell you because I'm not involved in all the clients, but Infineon could most likely, Siemens for sure, Otto, Fielmann, Oetker Group. So all companies that are quite aware of, okay, we need these tools, we need to train people, and how do we make it, and how do we synchronize it? Because it feels so different to record a meeting and give a summary and let everyone else approach it afterwards, compared to the politics that we learned in large corporations, the emails that we learned to write. But even they are so complex and so time consuming. And I honestly have to tell you, 8 o'clock in the evening when the kids are asleep, and I bring them to bed quite early because I need an hour at least for me. I'm exhausted. I'm drained. That's it. Full day.
Okay.
I don't want to write any more emails. So this is the point. So you can learn it at home. You have to synchronize it.
Okay. So now all of us here all of our participants are in parental leave. They are working companies. Most of these companies are introducing these tools. And I get the point that you do need to learn how to use them. You're not only supposed to be thrown into some shark tank of 15,000 tools and then be left alone. But now we are also focusing on this parental leave. And I actually think you've brought the point up on mental load, and maybe to sort of your experience is something that is shown in statistics. So you have statistics that show that just recently there was a publication of the Vermächtnis study by Professor Almedinger, who was testing mental load in 21 different dimensions, and a man only quoted in 3 of the 21 dimensions to do more than their partners. And it was something that it was elements of like doing the bills and taking care of the handicraft workers and something else. So yes, in average, they do less, but divorce rates, you're right, are up to 50 or higher. They are highest in couples who have kids in year 4 after birth. And the reason number 1 is mental load. And interesting enough, the initiation of these divorces is to 2/3 coming from women. Mm-hmm. And a huge amount of these women are, I think it's about 70-80% are financially independent. So if you put all of these things together and you're sort of, let's say, you basically you see that sharing the mental load is a survival sort of critique. Now, can we use new work and digitalization to practice, for example, sharing the mental load at home?
Mm-hmm. There are so many interesting topics that you touched with the statistics, Ricarda, and there are so many sides in my heart when I think about that, because there is this side as a partner, as a lover, as a friend, but also as a co-worker in organizing the homework. So I have a lot of thoughts on that topic, since the experience I made was quite tough, and And I'm quite sure every case is super different. So I'm careful now, and everything I say now is like from my experience, and doesn't necessarily mean for anyone else. Yes, you can, of course, use that. With my partner, we are very clear. She loves working, but she has also these two sides of, she loves the work, but she loves also this excitement of this experience and the chance of being a mother, and I fully support her. And since she knows me all the time as 100% father, she's quite aware of how I do the logistics. I am quite aware of what's coming now again. But even if I say it, no chance to like get that feedback. But you asked, like, can we use these things to like,
can we use digital tools that help you sort of solve this? Because I mean, one thing is the social expectation and what each individual wants, but I mean, we've just recently sort of reintroduced Slack, for example, and we had a big training, and we're all getting used to it again and again. So we've done it before, we do it again. Everybody thinks it's intuitive.
Here's the thing.
You do that at home.
I've seen so many cases in companies using Slack and all that stuff. And I would bet that I or someone else of my team doing that for the last 15 years, we would find the weak spot. That we always found the weak spot because some companies don't use it. And here's the thing. The underlying concept of these tools, of these modern, very fast communication tools is, you call it, you want to lower, get this, you want to lower the transactional cost per bit of communication. Simple image, imagine a container on a ship. Container ships, we're all quite aware of, right?
Yeah.
What containers did to logistic, they were lowering the transactional cost of the pieces transported. Before that, you had to do everything on. What these modern tools do, no matter if it's a WhatsApp group, if it's a Slack channel, and so on, they lower the transactional costs of communication. So you can, of course, use the tools to share more rich information. What I see, though, is in school, in the kita, and so on, they're not aware.
They do exactly the opposite.
It's exactly, I have so many emails per day from these different channels. Once I'm, and then I'm the spokesperson of the class, and the first thing I always do is, we definitely need to change the tool. And then they, no, we cannot use your WhatsApp, it doesn't work. And I said, like, but every fucking birthday is organized in a WhatsApp group, and you even share the pictures of all the kids in a WhatsApp group. Sorry, it doesn't make any sense. So I challenge it all the time, because what you want to have is a very fast way of logistics. I even have that with my ex-wife. We have one channel for all the kids' logistics. And whenever it's for us, we don't mix that in this channel. We have a separate channel for the divorce shit, of course, which makes sense. With my partner, when we then started in logistics, I said, like, where's our love stuff that we had? Let's have a logistics channel and have like one for the chat. I mean, for a potential affair, you also would have a different chat. Of course, you can tell him or her whatever you want. So let's be clear about that.
I love the channels.
Yeah, you know, I'm quite ironic about it, because the statistics you just quoted, I also know that for women, I think the average age of being divorced is 42, and I have lots of friends, female friends that I talk to, and when they leave their partner, same with the guys. Since I made this experience, I always ask the German name. Did you have a Fluchthelfer or Fluchthelferin? Because this is usually this tiny bit of information that is lacking when I challenge that. So as you see, it's complicated.
Okay. Let's get back from the divorce to the logistics at home, because you're just adding another layer to the complexity. But I think what at least all of us here are having is a kita issue, sort of a kind of a partner to sort of communicate with, and a baby. And I love the fact that we're not talking about new work tools at the workplace, but only at home, because this is actually where you can train. Because once you get this done, then you're easily sort of, let's say, set up for what you do at home. And by the way, at work, you will still have all of these channels running. I mean, we just concluded a session where someone was saying, oh, I'm going back to work, and I'm going to go and I got a promotion post parental leave. I'll go do a leadership position that previously has been done by people who worked, I don't know, 60, 80 hours. I will do it in 30. How will I do it? So you basically, one answer is you have to lower the transactional cost per bit of communication and reduce the hours, right?
And you said it's a different layer. The emotions is not a different layer. In the collaboration circle that we're using, emotion is a quarter of the part of the communication, meaning you have a channel for logistics and a channel for the love stuff with your partner. Just means that the stuff that you do with emojis, or when you say something nice, you just do it in that channel. You cannot have it lacking in that field. And I would bet you that most of the leaders who have to use these channels are not trained in asynchronous or hybrid communication. So they would not use it because they learned from the old leaders, no, you don't use that in communication. You are just very clear, but you would never use emojis, for example, which is BS, because you need that for information and for emotion.
Okay, I love it. So asynchronous hybrid communication at home it is. We're all going to be set up for this. If it doesn't work, complaints will go your direction, please. But maybe just one last element is, I mean, we talked a lot about new work at home and at the workplace. Are there sort of, let's say, framework conditions that you think should be set up so that we can all put ourselves set up for success as parents at work? Let's say we all know how to use these tools. We have our 5 channels, including the potential love affair channel in place. What do we need from a political point of view or framework sort of point of view to make that possible?
Just the awareness that it's very hard to make it work. Just the awareness. And we all have a different style, and we need to adapt it every day. And we should get away from the default that you come home and someone is there waiting for you, to the default saying, wow, we go to bed and we're quite excited about the fact that it worked another day together. And if we do that, we switch the perspective. We just flip the perspective and saying, oh, it's the default that someone is there doing all that stuff, to, wow, it all worked together. That's all I would say. And if you do that, it's far easier at the workplace and at home to accept that you need to adapt according to the situation that you face. And this can change quite quickly, as you all know, with kids and how they feel and how they are, and if they are sick or if the school is open or not.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Totally agree. Okay, so then last question to you, Christopher, and then I'll let you off the hook and we'll have a bit of a question and answer session afterwards. Nice. But is there, becoming a father, is there one of your sort of, let's say, many skills that you've already mentioned? What is your favorite parenting skill that you've gained becoming a father that you also see as a leadership skill?
Yeah. What I teach the kids and what I try to do for myself, and luckily I trained it so often that when I'm not capable of doing it, my girlfriend reminds me, or the kids remind me, that you can have the hardest night, you can have the hardest morning, but there is no reason to leave the house not with a smile. Meaning, once we are out the door, we make some music on the bikes, we find something nice. If it rains, it's good for the flowers, whatever the fuck it is. You just have no reason to leave the house not in a good mood. And I'm reminded whenever I'm not capable of doing that, at the latest when we go to the bikes from one of the kids, or when I leave the house with my girlfriend. And yeah, and this always works.
That's fantastic.
Always.
Thank you so much, Christopher. That's the best closing word I could say. Thanks so much. You're already getting a lot of reaction. I will close this podcast now, and I hope to keep a couple of questions and answers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Ricarda.